Hello, YouTube. It is good to see you again. I apologize for my long leave of absence, but some months ago I started hearing rumors of a book of forbidden lore. I was too curious not to look it up, not to find myself a copy. But as I was looking for it, one day I came home and found it upon my doorstep, mysteriously just sitting there waiting to be read. In this book, it was written by some Kalfar necromancer long ago. It has much that talks about spirits, golems, all ghosts. Many different things are contained within this book, and I've been eagerly reading it. It seems to, as I've been reading it longer and longer into the night, I hear the whispering. It's like the book itself is whispering to me, telling me to go on, to follow this path further, the deeper and darker it goes. And I am pleased to tell you that I now am a necromancer of some skill. And I will be teaching you this today, for I am talking about the Book of True Names, a book that is truly fantastic book. This is the fourth book in the line of Within the Ring of Fire. And this one is one that has been eagerly awaited since the saga book, the original book, came out for the line. Magic was talked about, it was whispered about in the book, and but now we have a book that really delves into it head first. But to say that this book, the Book of True Names, is a magic book would be doing this book a huge disservice, because it is not just magic that's in here. It's not just playing a magi or a magus. There's so much more into it. So we're going to get started right away talking about what's in this book. So first of all, the book starts by talking about what is magic, who are the magi, and how to become how to have a character who is a follower of one of the 5 esoteric paths of the magi. So the 5 paths are as follows: Dominus, Necromancer, Oracle, Summoner, and Witch. So these are originally what magic is it's basically laws, these guidelines that you can follow, basically almost like a scientific principle that you can follow to gain power. It wasn't always like that, though. These spells were originally granted to followers of the trolls, because trolls are the ones who created the esoteric paths of the magi. The first being by the originator of the trolls itself, time itself, Nithraxu, who created the trolls, the original trolls. But this is a time long past when these sacred paths, because that is what magic was. It was created by the trolls to safeguard creation from the destruction that is Ahriman and darkness, and those who would seek to disrupt creation itself, destroy all that had been created. So these paths are, but this time is long past. Since then, there was a large war between the gods, many of the gods, and the trolls, and over basically domination of creation itself. Eventually, the trolls did lose out in this war. The remaining ones were either driven underground, driven into hiding, or utterly destroyed. or their mind shattered by what they had to do to survive, depending on the troll. But these these laws, these principles of magic still remained to be used and indeed exploited as they were, because the trolls had lost that control that they had over magic itself. So there are now many heretical cults to magic that do not follow these sacred laws that were put down by the Magi. For there are certain ways that you should follow to stay in the good graces of those who have the power over magic. You can, as a character, there is the option to follow the path of malevolence, which is the path of darkness, the path of destruction. That is your prerogative. That is your character's option. However, if you do so, the powerful beings that created magic, the trolls themselves and other followers of the trolls, will track you down. It is a matter of time. They feel it emanating off of you, and they will find you, and you will be destroyed for what you have done. But regardless, until that point, you will have much power in your hands, for you care not to follow these laws. But some of these paths have already been hugely exploited, namely necromancy. Necromancy has both a sacred path laid down by the trolls and a profane path, profane rituals that were created outside of the trolls' control. But regardless, each of the five esoteric paths have, at the very least, have 11 different spells contained within them, one for each caster level, all the way from 0 up to 11. And let me tell you, I'm just going to say off the bat, I really appreciate that. I'm one of these people that when I play in a role-playing game, there are so many role-playing games that have so many spells. So many spells you have to remember. You have to look up constantly. You have to remember all the time. That is not the case with this. There are simply 11, depending on the path. Some paths have, for example, necromancy have a sacred and a profane path. Witches have the paths of petals and the path of thorns. But regardless, and each spell has many different uses that are detailed within. So you don't have to think of it as just 11 spells, because each spell is very versatile in the way you can use it, and the way you can describe it in character. Because of course, just like rituals described in 77 Thrones, as a player and as a character, you should have your own unique flavor to how you cast your spells, how they show up in character. So lots of different options. There are some very, very cool ones. All of the paths are very cool, just the options you get to have. My personal favorite, of course, would be the Oracle. You basically are a Lord of Time, as the path of the Oracle was created by Nithraxu, time itself. So you get control over time. It's very cool. And Necromancy, of course, is also very cool. Summoners are probably my third favorite. They are, I mean, they deal a lot with spirits, as do witches, but you'll have to check it out yourself. Decide which paths you think are the best. But there are some very, very cool ones. Lots of character options in that way. So after we talk about magic and the different spells and the ways you can, of course, profane it, we go on to talk about spirits themselves. Because this book, I think if you could give this book one theme, the theme, I think, is spirits. Because that is what Kvegathale is. Everything is a spirit. The clouds are spirits. The trees are spirits. The water, the land, everything is a spirit. So whether you are a follower of the trolls, whether you are a follower of the gods, of an elder creator who represents one of these things, of course, land, air, that sort of thing, or you are just someone trying to get by in Kvegathale. These spirits hold a great deal of importance in Kvegathale, and it is great that they are detailed. The spiritual hierarchy is detailed with immense precision in this book, giving flame tenders and for the most part flame tenders. This section is mostly for flame tenders, but it can also spark ideas for characters as well, as I will talk about later. But we go through the spiritual hierarchy. There are several different levels, starting from, you could say, the first level, an aspect, which, as you can, it's very, very basic what these things are. They start off with very low amount of intelligence, and as we go up the hierarchy, we get the spirits become more intelligent, more powerful, and they start to represent too. They start to represent different divinities. So we have various different types of spirits. The higher we go up, we have demons, we have daemons, which very different things. Demons are those created from Ahriman, either his children, its children, I should say, darkness itself. Ahriman is darkness, created from darkness or a child of darkness. That is what demons are. Daemons they more represent the physical world of Kvegathale. Things created from, Igvale, air, for example, and maybe Ahura Mazda. That would be, of course, a spirit of Zansero, as one example. But there are many, many different types. It would take me a long time to go through them all. But every spirit, every servitor of the divinities that you could think of, these spirits, is in here. So that is also great for a flame tender who wants to, show, for example, a follower of one of the gods or one of the trolls, a spirit of a much higher level that they can answer to. It's very, very cool that way. Later on, too, these spirits will come into handy into the advantages that are added into this book. Next, we have, in here, we also have ghosts. Okay, ghosts and spirits are obviously very different as well. A spirit is, this divine, created from a divine being, while a ghost is basically the soul of the detached soul of a mortal being. And that is very, very different. And yes, you can play as a ghost. The rules for ghosts are put into this book. He doesn't necessarily recommend that you play with ghost and living, dead and living characters together in one party. That would be difficult. You could do it, but you could create a saga centered around a ghostly party of characters who perhaps are trying to have their souls freed from this existence. For being a ghost is a horrendous thing. They start off as you start off as a shade, and a shade is basically the soul of a being that is waiting to be taken to Ta'ul, to be reforged or to be carried off by one of the servitors of one of the spirits of the divinity that the mortal once followed in life. But regardless, that is a shade. But then when they become a ghost, that is if the shade has not been claimed within one cycle, they become a ghost forever. They are detached from, they will not be reforged into a new soul. They will be perhaps forever, if they are not consumed by another malevolent spirit. They could be wandering Kvegathale or stuck to their body for all time. So moving on, we have golems, and golems are basically, they're created through a ritual, a magical ritual that binds a spirit to an object. Okay, now this is how magical items are created, is when you take a spirit and you bind it into a magical item, either willingly, which is advised, or against its will. You force it into that item. That is what a magic item is, and that is talked about later. I guess we will talk about it now. But depending on the spiritual, how powerful this spirit is, it can create magical items of great and immense power, or it can create items, of power, but not anything too great. But these, if you force it if you force the spirit in, you are tampering with dangerous things. But of course, that is always a fun option to do as a character. But regardless, a golem is a very specific ritual where a spirit is bound into this physical object and animated, basically an artificial soul. It is a very, very interesting prospect, and yes, you can play as golems, and he details out many different types of golems. It depends on, each golem is a different type of, it's a different type of object that you bind the spirit into. So for example, there are gold golems, and there are iron golems, and there are flesh golems, there are glass golems. There are many, many different types. But you too can play as a golem, a tortured spiritual soul that does not truly get that feeling of belonging in Kvegathale. It would be very, very interesting to do that as well. Moving onwards, in the book, we also have, moving on to, so obviously, as I had said before, there are some magical items of great, great power. One of them being the Book of True Names, as I described in the beginning of this video. One of the very interesting examples where the book is, you can have it. It will give you great power, but it will also likely in the end drive you from the path of a true magi. You will have to read more about it in this book. Very, very interesting. Many magical items are described here. Very, very interesting. I won't go into great detail because there are so many to cover. There are also those things that are created from the gods, and those are not magic. Magic is different. These are relics handed down to those who are deemed worthy by the divinities, or those who are not worthy and who stole it in a most foul and despicable way. That is what these relics are. Some of my favorite, I would have to say my #1 favorite has been mentioned by other people, but the Wig of Luxuriousness, yes, it is as awesome as you think it is. It is It is basically a wig that is, when it is put upon the person, it attaches itself and the person becomes far more attractive than they were before. Everyone who sees this person is drawn to this person, but maybe not in the way that the person who put the wig on intended, for it drives many feelings of envy and hate and desire within the people who see it. And you may never take it off, not until your death, for it is attached to you until your death. So it is both a blessing and a curse, perhaps more of a curse. I can see that as having such an item put upon your head would be a curse in my eyes. But and of course he talks about, he gives recommendations on how to create further magical items as a flame tender, how to create further relics. Very, very interesting stuff. Definitely check it out. This is how magic items should be. The magic items are not just some sort of pathetic +1 sort of bashing. You know, these are boring. These don't elicit any interest. No stories are told about the +1 bastard sword. You know, these are bland, banal items that deserve to be cast into the flames of Morgul itself, to be reforged into the awesomeness that are these magical items, detailed within these relics, these magical items. But regardless, we also have new advantages. Yes, new advantages, very exciting. And not just any advantages. These are very, very interesting. One type in particular is called the Scion advantages. These are laid out all over the advantages section. And what these are is, it basically gives you, as a character, it gives you the ability to be descended from a spirit. And most mortals are not, but those who are granted great boons and abilities that can grow over time as the person perhaps discovers who they really are, how they are descended from one of these spirits. And there are many different types of spirits that you can be descended from. You can be descended from angels, angels being those descended from a spirit of light, the light from the dead sun, the dead elder creator Ahura Mazda. That is one option, but you could also be descended from a demon, one of a scion of darkness, and that will change your destiny. You can be from a fallen angel, those who are descended from he who has many names, and his spirits. Many very interesting options. Oni, some of the Jantan, or the giants, are discovered, are very powerful spirits, and they are talked about in this book as well. You can be descended from one, and that has lots of repercussions, lots of advantages in there for your convenience to add. Now, as Ander has said, this book, with the amount of options that are in this book alone for character creation, there are thousands of different characters you can create now. If not, I couldn't. I do not understand the esoteric paths myself. Math is not my forte, but there are seriously thousands of different options now that this book has been added, especially with all the Scion advantages. There are also now this is also a very, very good thing that I was very happy about. This was I remember requesting this in a previous book, and I believe it was in the Saga book. I said, man, I wish there were more disadvantages. I wish there were more flaws in this book, and I got my wish. There are more indeed, and they are very good. I really appreciated seeing that. It made me feel like I was, I really contributed to Within the Ring of Fire. Like I really put in my say and was heard. So I'm very, very happy about that. And that's the book. But whew, that is a lot for 154 pages. That is incredible. I applaud his effort. This book, out of all the books, I feel this one has the most different amounts of information in here. This one feels the most full, with the possible exception of 77 Thrones. I mean, those books, both of these two feel like they are far worth they are worth the asking price that is given. So, do I recommend it? Hell yeah. Of course I do. This book is incredible. Definitely recommend it for everyone. Start with the Saga book. If I had to give an order of buying, that depends of whether you are planning on being a flame tender or you are planning on being a player. But I would do Saga book, 77 Thrones, and that's depending on if you're a flame tender. This has more in here, I think, for you. If you are a player, Monsters and Men, I think, will have more for you. But it is up to you. But this is an excellent edition. This now makes it the quartet, the amazing quartet of Within the Ring of Fire. I highly recommend it. If you want to buy it, if you want PDF copies, I would definitely recommend friending Andrew Wood on Facebook. He has an account on there. Friend him and ask him to buy the books directly through him, the PDF copies, and he will give you a great deal. He will give, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's $15 for the Saga book. He's giving a discount price on each of them. Plus, he will give, and this is the one I took him up on, and that's if you pay $75, he will give you every single PDF for that will ever come out for Within the Ring of Fire, and that is definitely a great deal. There's so many books that are coming, that have come out, and that you'll get 4 right away, but there's more that are coming out. There's going to be a book, Here Be Dragons, but there's also going to be The Menagerie, which I suspect is going to have all of the bastard races in it. Very, very excited to see that. But I'll cut this video short because it's going on for way too long, but definitely recommend this book. Check it out if you have the chance. This has been Andrew, and I will see y'all later.